Nature is beautiful. We're taught from childhood to appreciate it. The colors of flowers, the patterns of leaves, the glow of bioluminescent organisms in dark places. But beauty in nature often serves a purpose. The bright colors of poison dart frogs warn predators. The sweet smell of corpse flowers attracts pollinators. And the soft blue glow of the moss in Virginia's Luminous Grove? That glow attracts prey. Because the moss isn't really moss at all. It's a parasitic organism that's been feeding on mammals for thousands of years, converting living flesh into plant matter while keeping the nervous system intact and conscious. The trees in the Luminous Grove aren't trees, they're people. Hikers who touched the glowing moss and began a transformation that takes years to complete. Years of feeling your bones hollow out, your skin harden to bark, your blood turn to sap, all while remaining completely aware, completely conscious, completely trapped. This is the story of Dr. Elena Voss, who studied the luminous moss and learned too late what it really was. Welcome to the grove. The trees are watching, and some of them remember being human. The expedition. Dr. Elena Voss had spent 15 years studying unusual plant species in extreme environments, and the report of bioluminescent moss in the Virginia Appalachians was exactly the kind of discovery that made her career worthwhile. The phenomenon had been documented by a hiker named Marcus Webb, who'd posted photos on a naturalist forum. The images showed trees covered in what appeared to be moss that glowed with a soft blue light. Beautiful, ethereal, unlike anything Elena had seen before. Most bioluminescent organisms were fungi or bacteria, not bryophytes. If this was genuinely moss producing its own light, it would be a major scientific discovery. Elena assembled a small research team. Her graduate assistant, Tom Chen, mycologist, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, in case the moss was actually a fungus, and wildlife photographer James Rodriguez, who specialized in bioluminescent organisms. They planned a 3-day expedition to collect samples and document the phenomenon. The hike to the Luminous Grove took 6 hours through increasingly remote terrain. The last GPS coordinates Marcus had posted led them deep into an unnamed valley in a section of national forest that saw fewer than a dozen visitors per year. They reached the valley at sunset, and Elena immediately understood why the location had remained relatively undocumented. The valley was a geological anomaly, a narrow basin surrounded by steep ridges with a microclimate that seemed to trap mist and maintain high humidity even when the surrounding areas were dry. Perfect conditions for moss growth. "We'll set up camp here at the valley's edge," Elena said, choosing a spot on higher ground. "Then we'll enter the grove once it's dark enough for the bioluminescence to be visible." As they pitched tents and prepared equipment, Sarah noticed something odd. "The trees at the valley floor look wrong," she said, studying them through binoculars. "The bark texture is unusual, and they're arranged too uniformly, almost like they were planted rather than naturally occurring." "Could be an old orchard," Tom suggested. "This area was settled in the 1800s. Maybe someone tried to farm here before abandoning it." But Elena didn't think so. The trees were too varied in species. Oaks, maples, pines, even some she couldn't identify from a distance. No farmer would plant such a mix. And the arrangement, while too regular to be random, didn't follow any agricultural pattern she recognized. They ate a quick dinner as darkness fell, then gathered their equipment, sample containers, cameras, protective gloves, and powerful flashlights, and descended into the valley. The grove revealed itself slowly as they hiked downward. At first, the trees looked normal in their flashlight beams, but as their eyes adjusted and the last daylight faded, they began to see it, a faint blue glow emanating from the moss-covered trunks. "My God," James whispered, raising his camera. "It's beautiful." He was right. The bioluminescence was stunning. Hundreds of trees throughout the valley floor, all covered in softly glowing moss that created an otherworldly blue light. The effect was magical, like something from a fantasy film. Elena approached the nearest glowing tree carefully, activating her headlamp to examine the luminous covering. Up close, the moss was even more unusual. It grew in patterns, swirling designs that almost looked deliberate. And the texture was wrong, too smooth, too uniform, more like a biofilm than actual moss. "Sarah, what do you think?" Elena called to the mycologist. "Is this moss or fungus?" Sarah was examining a different tree about 20 feet away. "Neither," she said, her voice uncertain. "The cellular structure is... I've never seen anything like it. It's almost like..." She stopped abruptly. "Like what?" "Elena, you need to see this." Sarah's voice had gone flat, carefully controlled in a way that suggested she was trying not to panic. Elena walked over to Sarah's tree and looked at what had caught her colleague's attention. There, partially obscured by the glowing substance but still visible, was a face, a human face, integrated into the bark of the tree. The features were distorted, stretched, but unmistakably human. Eyes that seemed to be closed, a mouth frozen in what might have been a scream or a plea. "Jesus Christ!" Tom breathed, coming up behind them. "Did someone carve a face into the tree?" "No," Sarah said quietly. She scraped away a bit of the glowing moss to reveal more of the underlying bark. The face wasn't carved, it was part of the tree itself. This was a person, or used to be a person.
That's not possible. Human tissue can't transform into plant matter. Then explain that, Sarah said, pointing at what she'd uncovered. Where normal tree bark would show rings and grain, this showed something else. Structures that looked disturbingly like muscle fibers, blood vessels, bone, all transmuted into wooden analogs, but still maintaining their original arrangement. James was photographing everything, his camera flash creating strobe effects in the glowing grove. "There's another one," he said, pointing to a tree 30 feet away. "And there. Oh, God, they're everywhere." He was right. Now that they knew what to look for, they could see faces in dozens of trees throughout the grove, some barely visible, some prominently displayed, all frozen in expressions of terror, pain, or pleading. "We need to leave," Tom said, backing away from the trees. "Right now." But Elena's scientific curiosity overrode her fear. "We need samples. We need to understand what this is." She pulled out a collection kit and reached toward the glowing moss. "Don't touch it," Sarah grabbed her arm. "We have no idea what this organism does, if it somehow transformed these people." "Transformed them how? Through what mechanism? Plant cells and animal cells are fundamentally different. You can't just convert one to the other." "And yet," Sarah said, gesturing at the forest of human-faced trees around them, "here we are." Elena knew Sarah was right. The scientific impossibility of what we were seeing didn't make it less real. But she'd come here to collect data, and she couldn't return empty-handed. "I'll be careful. I'll use gloves, maintain full protective protocol, but we need samples." Before Sarah could protest further, Elena pulled on nitrile gloves and carefully scraped a small amount of the glowing moss into a sterile container. The substance came away easily, leaving a dark patch on the tree bark beneath. And the moment she removed it, Elena could have sworn she heard something, a faint sound, like a whisper or a gasp. She looked up at the face in the tree. Had its eyes just moved, opened slightly as if trying to see her? "Elena, your hand!" Elena looked down and felt her stomach drop. Where the moss had contacted her glove just for a second during collection, the nitrile was dissolving. Small tendrils of the luminous substance were working through the material, reaching for her skin underneath. She ripped the glove off and threw it aside. The moss-covered glove landed on the ground and began to glow more brightly, the organism seeming to pulse with increased activity. And Elena's hand, where the protection had been compromised, showed a small patch of blue luminescence on her palm. "No!" Elena whispered, staring at the glowing spot. "No! No! No!" She rubbed at it frantically, trying to wipe it away, but the glow had already penetrated the skin. She could feel it. Not pain exactly, but a wrongness, a foreign presence working its way into her tissue. "We need to get you to a hospital," Sarah said, grabbing Elena's arm. "Now." They ran through the grove, back toward their camp, the faces in the trees seeming to watch them pass. And as they ran, Elena swore she could hear voices, faint, whispered pleas coming from the wooden throats of the transformed hikers. "Help us! Please! Can't move! Still here! Still aware! Kill us! Please kill us!" The team scrambled up the slope to their campsite, packed their essential gear in record time, and started the hike out of the valley. But it was full dark now, the trail treacherous, and they'd only made it 2 miles when Elena collapsed. "I can't," she gasped. "I need to rest, just for a few minutes." Tom checked her vital signs, while Sarah examined the contamination site on Elena's palm. The glowing patch had spread, no longer just a spot, but branching tendrils running up her fingers and toward her wrist, following her veins with disturbing precision. "It's in your bloodstream," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice clinical and failing. "It's using your circulatory system to spread throughout your body." "What is it? What's happening to me?" Sarah pulled out her portable microscope and took a sample from the edge of the glowing area. What she saw made her hands shake. "It's... God, Elena, it's a parasitic plant-animal hybrid. I've never seen anything like it. The cellular structure has characteristics of both kingdoms. It's infiltrating your cells, merging with them, slowly converting the organic matter. Your flesh is being transformed into plant tissue." "How long? How long until I'm like those trees?" Sarah couldn't answer. Tom checked the photos James had taken of the human-faced trees. "Some of them are wearing clothing from different eras," he said quietly. "I can see styles from the 1800s, the early 1900s, the 1960s. This process has been going on for over a century, maybe longer." "So it takes years," Elena said, a spark of hope in her voice. "If it takes years, we have time to find a cure. Cut it out, burn him out, something." "Elena," Sarah said gently, "look at your hand." The glowing tendrils had reached Elena's elbow in the 15 minutes since they'd stopped. The organism was growing faster than any plant should be able to grow. And where the luminescence had been, Elena's skin was already changing, becoming harder, taking on a woody texture. "Oh God," Elena whispered. "It's accelerating. Why is it accelerating?" "Maybe because you're a botanist," Sarah suggested. "You spend your whole life around plants. Your body chemistry might be more compatible with the conversion process." Elena tried to stand, to keep moving toward help, but her legs buckled. The transformation had already reached her core, was spreading through her torso, making her muscles respond sluggishly. "Leave me. Get to town. Get help. Bring back scientists who can study this, who can figure out—" "We're not leaving you," Sarah said firmly. But Elena knew they should. She could feel the organism working through her body, could feel her bones beginning to hollow out like wood, her blood thickening to sap. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was neurological. Her thoughts were slowing, becoming more plant-like in their rhythm, more concerned with light and water and root systems than with human concepts like fear or urgency. "You have to," Elena insisted. "Document what happened to me. Warn others. Make sure no one else touches this thing." She paused, feeling the words coming with increasing difficulty as her vocal cords began to stiffen. "And if you can, if there's any way, don't let me stay aware. The trees in the grove, they're still conscious. I could see it in their eyes, hear it in their whispers. They're trapped in wooden bodies, unable to move or speak or die for years, decades. I can't—" Her voice broke. "I can't endure that. Please." James had been silent throughout this exchange, but now he spoke up. "We could try fire, burn the infected tissue before it spreads further." It's already too far gone, Sarah said, checking Elena's other hand, which was now also showing signs of transformation despite never having directly contacted the moss. It's in her bloodstream. Burning the visible areas wouldn't stop it. Elena could feel her consciousness beginning to fragment. Part of her mind was still human, still thinking in words and concepts, but another part, a growing part, was becoming something else. She could feel the trees in the luminous grove, could sense their presence like a network of root systems touching her own. They were welcoming her, making space in their collective consciousness for one more transformed soul. And they were so lonely, so desperate for connection after decades of isolation in their wooden prisons. The organism is a hive mind, Elena managed to say, her words slurring as her tongue began to stiffen into bark. The trees, they're all connected, all aware, all trapped together. I can feel them. They're begging for death, for release, but they can't die. The organism keeps them alive, keeps them conscious, keeps them growing. She looked at her team, her friends with eyes that were already beginning to develop the clouded wooden appearance of bark. Burn the grove, burn it all. It's the only way to free them, the only way to stop this from spreading to others. We will, Sarah promised, but first we'll get you to— No, Elena interrupted. You'll stay here. You'll watch what happens to me. You'll document it. That's what scientists do. We observe, we record, we learn. A terrible smile crossed her face, terrible because her lips were already too stiff to move properly, making the expression grotesque. I'm going to be the first person to document the transformation from the inside. Isn't that something? Over the next 6 hours, Elena Voss became a tree. The transformation was agonizing, but in a distant, dreamlike way. The organism produced analgesic compounds that dulled physical pain while keeping consciousness intact. Elena's team watched in horror as her legs fused together and pushed down into the soil, roots extending from her feet to anchor her in place. Her skin darkened and hardened to bark. Her hair became moss. Her arms raised and branched, fingers splitting into twigs that would eventually bear leaves. And through it all, Elena described what she was feeling. Tom recorded everything, though his hands shook so badly that the footage was barely usable. The roots are deepest now, Elena said, her voice already hollow and wooden, coming from somewhere deep in her transforming trunk. I can feel the soil, can taste the minerals in the water. I'm drawing nutrients up from deep underground. It feels good, natural, like this is what I was meant to be. A pause. But I'm still me, too. Still Elena, still remembering my childhood, my education, my life before. And I know I'll remember all of it, forever, trapped in wood, unable to move or speak or interact with the world, just existing, aware, alone but not alone, because I can feel all the others, all the trees, all the transformed ones. We're all still in there, all still screaming. Her voice became harder to distinguish as her mouth sealed over with bark. The last clear thing Elena said was, "Burn the grove, please. We're all begging you. Burn it." Then her eyes, the only part of her face still visible, froze in position, open, aware, pleading. Sarah, Tom, and James sat in stunned silence, watching the thing that had been Dr. Elena Voss complete its transformation. In the morning light, she looked like any other tree in the grove, a young oak, maybe 15 feet tall, with one patch of luminous moss on her trunk, and, if you looked very carefully, the faint outline of a woman's face visible in the bark pattern. The team hiked out of the valley in silence. When they reached civilization, they tried to report what had happened. They showed their photos, their video documentation, their samples. But the samples, once removed from the grove's environment, stopped living and seemed to die within hours. Without living specimens and footage that looked like it could easily be faked, their story was dismissed as a tragedy-induced hallucination. Dr. Elena Voss was listed as missing, presumed dead. The official story was that she'd fallen in the remote valley and her body had been lost to the wilderness. Sarah, Tom, and James tried to honor Elena's final request. They returned to the Luminous Grove with gasoline and road flares, determined to burn the entire valley. But when they arrived, they found the grove had moved, or rather, the trees had moved. Dozens of human-faced trees now stood in a tight circle around the valley's only entrance, blocking access.
And in their wooden faces, the team could see pleas. Not to burn them, they still wanted that release. But something else. A warning. The organism was intelligent enough to protect itself, and it had made the transformed trees into guards, into unwilling sentinels that would prevent anyone from destroying the grove. The team tried to force their way through, but the trees, or rather, the people trapped in the trees, used their branches to block passage, creating an impenetrable wall. Sarah later swore she heard Elena's voice among the whispers. "Don't come in. It's waiting for you. Hungry. Always hungry. Go back. Live. Please." They left. What else could they do? The Luminous Grove remains in its valley, untouched and undocumented in any official capacity. Every few years, a hiker sees the mysterious blue glow and posts about it online, sharing photos and GPS coordinates. Some go to investigate. Most come back, having enjoyed the beautiful bioluminescent phenomenon. But some don't come back. And the grove grows larger. More trees, more transformed hikers, more consciousness trapped in wooden prisons, aware and pleading and desperate for release that will never come. Sarah Mitchell died 5 years ago. Before she passed, she told her closest colleague about the Luminous Grove, about Elena's transformation, about the organism that converts flesh to wood. She begged her colleague to find a way to destroy it, to free the trapped souls. Her colleague tried, but like Sarah, he found the grove guarded by the very victims it had claimed. The trees wouldn't let anyone enter with fire or chemicals, wouldn't permit their own release if it meant allowing the organism to be destroyed. Because the organism had gotten into their minds, had merged with their consciousness, had convinced them on some deep level that their transformation was natural, necessary, even beautiful. The human part of them still begged for death, but the plant part, the dominant part now, would not allow it. Tom Chen still visits the valley sometimes, though he never enters the grove. He stands at the perimeter and apologizes to Elena, to all the transformed ones, for failing to honor their final wishes. Sometimes, when conditions are right, he swears he can hear them whisper back, thanking him for remembering they were once human. And James Rodriguez destroyed all his photographs of the Luminous Grove. He couldn't bear to see Elena's face in the bark, to remember what she'd become. He never photographed bioluminescent organisms again. The grove glows every night, blue and beautiful and deadly, a trap baited with wonder, an organism that feeds on curiosity, on the human impulse to touch beautiful things. And somewhere in that grove, a tree that was once Dr. Elena Voss still stands, still aware, still conscious, still trapped in wood that will never rot, never fall, never release her to death. She's been there for 12 years now. If you visit the grove, which you absolutely should not, you can find her. Look for a young oak with moss patterns that almost look like letters, spelling out something in a language that predates human speech, but somehow carries meaning anyway. Help us. We're still here, still aware. For the love of God, burn it all. But no one will, because the grove protects itself, and the trees, even while begging for death, will not permit their own destruction. That's the final cruelty of the organism.
It doesn't just transform flesh to wood, it transforms the mind, creating a terrible paradox where its victims desperately want to die but cannot allow themselves to be killed. The luminous grove will stand for centuries more, growing, spreading, adding new trees with new consciousness trapped in wood, new souls begging silently for a release that will never come. And it glows so beautifully at night, so very, very beautiful. Don't touch the moss.
The luminous grove can still be found if you know where to look. The GPS coordinates are posted on several naturalist forums, though they're usually accompanied by warnings about difficult terrain or private property, anything to discourage visitors. But people still go. Can't resist the lure of bioluminescent beauty in the wilderness. Last year, 3 visitors entered the grove. 2 came back. The third sent one final text message before her phone died. The moss is so beautiful. I touched it just for a second. I can feel it working through my hand. Tell my family I love them. Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them not to look for me. Search and rescue found no trace of her. But if you visit the grove and look carefully at the newest, smallest tree near the entrance, you can see her face in the bark. She's been there for 14 months now, still aware, still hoping someone will find a way to end her transformation before it's complete. But it's already complete, has been for months. She just doesn't fully understand that yet, because the organism keeps her in a state of perpetual hope, perpetual waiting, perpetual consciousness. Dr. Elena Voss has been a tree for 12 years. She can feel time passing, can count the seasons by the changes in light and temperature, can experience every moment of every hour of every day with perfect clarity. She's estimated she's been conscious for approximately 105,000 hours since her transformation. That's 105,000 hours of being trapped in wood, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to die. And she'll experience hundreds of thousands more, maybe millions, maybe until the sun expands and consumes the earth. The organism doesn't allow its hosts to age normally, doesn't allow them to die. They're preserved, conscious, eternal. A forest of screaming souls in wooden prisons. If this story has you avoiding beautiful glowing things in nature, hit that subscribe button for more terrifying tales from the organisms that feed. And remember, not everything beautiful in nature is safe. Some of the most gorgeous sights in the natural world are lures, traps, mechanisms by which predators attract prey. The luminous moss glows specifically to attract curious mammals. It's been doing so for millennia, perfecting its lure, growing its forest of consciousness-trapped victims. If you ever encounter something in the wilderness that seems too beautiful, too perfect, too compelling to resist, resist anyway. Don't touch it. Don't collect it. Don't get close. Because some organisms don't just kill. Some organisms transform, and some transformations leave you alive to experience every moment of your new existence for eternity. The luminous grove is still growing, still converting, still trapping, and the trees, the people who were once hikers and scientists and curious explorers, are still there, still aware, still begging for release. Still hoping someone will find a way to burn the grove and free them. But no one will, because the organism has made sure of that. Beauty is its weapon, and we are all vulnerable to beauty.